Let's start by clarifying the legal boundaries. What authority does the U.S. president actually have when it comes to ordering military actions, particularly without explicit congressional approval?
Great question. The President, as Commander-in-Chief under Article 2 of the Constitution, can deploy military force without first seeking Congress's approval in certain cases. However, the War Powers Resolution of 1973 requires notification within 48 hours and restricts unauthorized military involvement to 60 days unless Congress grants an extension.
So, in effect, presidents have some discretion, but are supposed to involve Congress for longer-term operations. Can you give an example where this legal tension has played out?
Absolutely. For instance, President Obama's 2011 intervention in Libya bypassed congressional authorization, sparking debate over executive overreach. Similarly, recent actions against Iran prompted claims that President Trump exceeded his legal mandate, reigniting this ongoing constitutional discussion.
Building on that, it seems presidents from both parties have taken military action without Congress. How common is this practice, and what are some notable examples?
It's actually become quite routine. Presidents including Clinton in Kosovo, Obama in Libya, and Biden in Syria have all ordered strikes without direct approval. According to a Congressional Research Service report, since WWE, there have been over 100 instances where presidents used military force without a formal declaration of war.
That's a significant number. Why do you think Congress has rarely responded with impeachment or serious rebuke in these cases?
Often, political considerations and the urgency of threats lead Congress to avoid confrontation. Plus, public opinion sometimes supports swift action, making it politically risky for lawmakers to oppose the president during perceived crises.
This brings us to the calls for impeachment. Some argue President Trump's actions warrant it, while others point to the lack of similar calls during previous administrations. Could you elaborate on the partisan dynamics at play here?
Definitely, impeachment is a political process as much as a legal one. While Democrats have criticized Trump, Republicans highlight that previous presidents weren't impeached for similar military decisions. A 2020 Pew survey found public support for impeachment often splits sharply along party lines, reflecting deeper polarization.
So, are these impeachment debates more about political signaling than actual legal violations?
In many cases, yes. The threshold for impeachment is high, and the process can backfire politically if perceived as purely partisan. Both sides leverage these debates to energize their base and frame the opposition as hypocritical or extreme.
Let's focus on the War Powers Resolution. Has it effectively checked presidential power, or is it more symbolic than substantive in modern practice?
While the War Powers Resolution was intended as a safeguard, in practice, many presidents have found ways to circumvent its restrictions. For example, they might interpret hostilities narrowly or simply argue that certain actions don't trigger the law's requirements. A 2018 GAO report noted frequent lapses in compliance or disputed interpretations.
Can you think of a scenario where the resolution actually prevented unauthorized military escalation?
It's rare, but in 1975, Congress invoked it to force the end of U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Since then, its impact has been limited, showing its primary value may be as a political tool rather than a strict legal constraint.
Turning to Iran, preventing nuclear proliferation there has long been a bipartisan goal. Why has this issue become so divisive recently?
Historically, both Republicans and Democrats agreed Iran should not obtain nuclear weapons. However, disagreement over strategy sanctions versus diplomacy, withdrawal from the nuclear deal has driven new divisions. A 2023 Brookings poll found a sharp partisan split on the effectiveness of the Iran nuclear agreement.
So, is the core disagreement tactical rather than about the end goal?
Exactly. Most lawmakers agree on the objective, but differ on how to achieve it. Some advocate for tough sanctions and military deterrence, while others prefer diplomatic engagement and incremental concessions.
Supporters argue Trump's Middle East policy has reset the world stage and made it safer, while critics warn of destabilization. Can you break down these opposing perspectives?
Proponents cite the Abraham Accords and the targeted strike on General Soleimani as examples of decisive leadership, claiming these moves deterred adversaries. Conversely, critics argue such unilateral actions risk escalation and undermine long-term alliances. The Council on Foreign Relations notes mixed outcomes in regional stability metrics since 2017.
Are there measurable results that clarify which perspective is closer to reality?
It's complex. While some normalization occurred, incidents like the 2020 embassy attack in Baghdad illustrate ongoing volatility. Ultimately, scholars suggest the full impact may take years to evaluate.
The discussion mentions a delicate ceasefire. Can you explain the challenges of brokering and maintaining such truces, particularly in the Middle East?
Ceasefires demand trust between adversaries, reliable enforcement, and often third-party mediation. In regions with deep-rooted animosities, even minor infractions can unravel agreements. For example, the 2014 Gaza ceasefire collapsed within days due to mutual accusations of violations.
How do world powers typically respond when ceasefires are at risk?
Major powers may deploy diplomats or leverage sanctions to encourage compliance, but their influence is limited if local actors mistrust external motives. Sometimes, ceasefires serve more as temporary pauses than lasting solutions.
The conversation contrasts Trump's decisiveness with the withdrawal from Afghanistan under President Biden and bombing campaigns under Obama. What are the key differences in their approaches to military engagement?
Trump's approach emphasized rapid, high-profile actions like the Soleimani strike, aiming for deterrence through strength. Obama favored targeted drone strikes and multilateral coalitions, while Biden prioritized ending prolonged military involvements, as seen in the Afghanistan withdrawal. Each strategy has supporters and critics, depending on the outcome and perceptions of U.S. credibility.
Is there consensus among analysts about which approach yields better results?
Not really. Each approach carries risks and trade-offs. For instance, rapid withdrawals can create power vacuums, but prolonged engagement can drain resources and public support.
A key point is the large defense and border security bill moving through Congress. Can you outline its main provisions and political significance?
Certainly. The bill includes increased funding for military modernization, support for NATO allies, and enhanced border security measures. It also contains provisions to prevent tax increases, appealing to fiscal conservatives. According to the Congressional Budget Office, it represents one of the largest defense budgets in recent years.
Why is there such urgency around passing this bill now?
Political leaders argue that timely passage ensures national security readiness and economic stability. Delays could hinder military planning and weaken international confidence in U.S. commitments.
As we wrap up, how influential is public opinion in shaping these foreign policy debates and legislative outcomes?
Public sentiment can be decisive. For example, Gallup polls show support for military action often spikes after high-profile incidents, then declines as risks or costs mount. Lawmakers track these shifts closely, adjusting their rhetoric and policy positions accordingly.
Can you give an example of public opinion directly impacting congressional action?
Certainly. During the 2013 Syria crisis, widespread public opposition led Congress to resist authorizing military strikes, prompting the Obama administration to seek a diplomatic solution instead. This underscores the democratic feedback loop in U.S. foreign policy.